Warren County Finance Committee meeting to order.
And I would like to call the Washington County Finance meeting to order.
And I'll do the finance.
You ready? Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for responding. Otherwise, I'd have to make you do it again. How's everyone doing today? Thank you for being here. We appreciate your support. And we just thought we'd start off with just a little update on what we've been up to at your community college and share a little bit of points of pride, as we like to say. And then we'll turn it over to Emily and her team to present our budget request. So this picture, Chancellor Johnson, I don't know if we can really call her new still, but only a year in her tenure as the new SUNY Chancellor, was here on campus earlier this year. And had a wonderful visit. We were able to show off every aspect of not only Queensbury campus. She had dinner the night before at Seasons in the Culinary Arts Center, and we also were able to take her to our site in Wilton. So she had the full view of what's happening at SUNY around that. And it's always the clicker. It worked about 5 seconds ago. So at our NEC Hall, which you all helped us fund and were able to build, I wanted to share with you, it was recently awarded an Excellence in Architectural Design Award for JMC, our architects and planners out of Glens Falls. And so it's really become a point of pride not only for us, but also our industry, and this gets shared across the state and across the nation. So I just wanted to share a couple comments from our science faculty, now having almost a year into their new science facilities and some of the things that they've told us. And I'll just read quickly for you, but our core science courses in bio, chemistry, environmental science, geology, and physics continue to show strong enrollment. Now those students and their faculty can explore at last the science of the 21st century and 21st century facilities. I would also note that our new facilities showplaces, the greenhouse, our state-of-the-art saltwater aquarium provide not just benefits for our students, but also as public spaces to enhance our value to the general community and to visiting young scholars from K through 12. We've almost become kind of a tourist destination, particularly for our aquarium. We have groups of students coming through of all ages to experience that for our community. And another faculty member shared, I've been able to use the new facilities to mentor student research. 100% of the students who have completed chemistry research have been able to secure highly competitive internships in industrial chemistry labs. The research that they were able to conduct in our new facilities have helped them to compete with applicants from other institutions. And of course, our Northwest Bay Conference Center, which many of you have been in at various events. We've had nearly 200 events and meetings take place, and it's only been open since last year. We've had job fairs, lectures, business training, workshops, community events, all across the board, being used for a variety of purposes. And we really haven't even started a full-on marketing campaign to actually market the event, to bring in events and conferences. So this is just the beginning, and it's really been by word of mouth, and we're positioning ourselves to advertise widely. It's become the showcase of the campus. Some of the comments we've received from people who've attended events there: excellent facility, beautiful, conducive to learning. Thanks again for hosting a wonderful event for us. I heard a lot of positive feedback, and it was so nice to work with you on this event. So again, thank you for all of your support in being able to build some new facilities that are really becoming the showcase of not only the campus, but the community. I want to talk a little bit about enrollment, because of course it does drive a good percentage of our budget, of course. So this is where we are today, and where we're projected to be in the fall. And no one likes to see that little minus symbol in front of any number, but I can tell you I just got back about a half hour ago from a SUNY president's meeting, so all 64 campuses, and I can tell you, with the exception of maybe a couple of university centers, all of the colleges are experiencing the similar enrollment challenges, which is particularly related to kind of the confluence of two major pressures, that's demographics, the continued decline of high school student graduation numbers, as well as full employment, and particularly for community colleges, when employment is good, less people go back to college. We've had that inverse relationship throughout our history, and that hasn't changed much. So even though 4% down in headcount isn't where we'd like to be, I can tell you in comparison, we're still in very good shape compared to our peers. And I have our VP of Enrollment, Rob, here, and I can tell you that between his team and the academic services area, we're all working hard to try to stem that decline as much as possible. So for fall 19, we're projecting about a 6% FTE decline and about a 4% in fall headcount. And as I said, full employment really does make a difference for us. We're hearing even more students leaving high school that are choosing not to go on to college right away because they can be employed and are kind of lured in by making some money. And you know, when we look at our data, the biggest decline of enrollment as far as the demographic are the students who are 25 years old and over. And again, that has a direct relationship to when you're in a full employment situation. But we are doing well in our new student enrollment, which is always a positive sign that there's still a lot of interest in our institution. We're running about where we were last year for new students, at least as of today. And of course, that fluctuates throughout the summer as we continue to bring in students for our accepted student days and orientation. But our team is working really hard at focusing on the students that we've accepted and getting them to enroll. That's the population that you really want to spend your time on. I will report, though, we've had a large graduating class for this year. Not the largest, but close. And we think this is really positive because, you know, enrollment has been steadily kind of flattening out and declining over the last couple of years. So if your graduation numbers are going up at the same time that enrollment is flattening out, that means we're actually doing a better job in helping our students reach their goals. And we see it in the data. We've seen over the past 5 years consistently increasing the numbers of students who are completing with less time, as well as getting to the finish line in a much more productive fashion. And that's what we want to do. So it has sort of that, you know, relationship in terms of enrollment, but it's a good thing that more students are completing, and that's what we want to see. So we are working also on rebranding, as we say, the center. So we've had a group of faculty and staff and administration working on how can we continue to enhance our offerings at our site in Wilton. And even as part of that conversation, we really felt that we want to make sure that our public understands that we're there to serve the larger Saratoga area, and that identifying the center as the Wilton Center may not be as clear that we're here in Saratoga County, and particularly northern Saratoga County, to serve that region. So we're rebranding the name of the center to City Adirondack Saratoga. You'll be seeing some of those marketing materials if you travel around. And part of it is really an opportunity to demonstrate our value in the Saratoga County region. We're looking at how we program some of our offerings in Saratoga to be a little bit different than what we do in Queensbury, while maintaining some of the general education courses that really are there for convenience for students, but also looking at focusing on that adult learner who's looking for some retraining, what we also are calling upskilling. In other words, Saratoga County in general has a pretty high percentage of student people that have college degrees. But we know with the changing technology and the changing workplace, people are looking to retrain or upskill in certain areas to be able to be even more employable or to have promotions. So for an example, we did kind of a unique partnership this past spring with an organization called Albany Can Code, all one word. And it's really about coding and the need for that employers are looking for very specific folks with strengths and coding understandings and things like front-end web development, if you know what that is, or Python is another software that is being used heavily in certain industries. And so this company actually on our campus is offering about a 10 to 12 week boot camp to teach people how to code. What's really kind of exciting about it is that they're attracting people who might not otherwise see themselves as being able to enter the computer field. In fact, I was talking with the CEO yesterday, and she was describing how, when you think about it, there's a whole population, a whole generation, of course, that did not grow up with computers even in their high school curriculum. And so they're intimidated by it, but yet we think they have the ability to do it. And so one of their primary populations that they're attracting are folks that are underemployed, that may not see themselves as ever being able to have that skill, and they're actually able to teach people in about 12 weeks how to code on certain platforms. And on average, those folks are coming out making $15,000 to $20,000 more than what they would have been making without it. So the outcomes are pretty positive. For us, we see it as an opportunity to, of course, serve the community, but also to get students' foot in the door. So once they have the confidence to say, oh, I can do this work, now I think I want to enroll in a degree or certificate program, then it benefits us in the long run. So those are kind of unique partnerships that we're looking to continue to grow, both in Saratoga and here in Queensbury. When we talk about outstanding student success outcomes, this is just one example, but if you look at that line, we've been very focused on getting students on our campus. We know we have a beautiful campus, and we know, and all the data shows for, quite frankly, forever in enrollment management, is that if you can get a student on your campus, they're more likely to enroll. So one of our strategies has been to encourage more campus visitations. We've allocated resources to do that, and you can see that the number of prospective students and families over a 3-year period has grown from 408 to 1,440, as well as the number of tours. And I know that may seem small to you, but it does make a difference in terms of being able to invite students on campus. They have a great experience, and they're more likely to enroll in college. So we're really proud of that. So even though enrollment concerns us, we have a real positive outlook here at the college. You know, first of all, 60% of our graduates leave debt-free. That's pretty impressive. And at a time when higher education costs continue to rise for students, we want to make sure we can maintain that as best we can for our students. 57% of our students attend tuition-free. This isn't just the Excelsior Scholarship. This is really looking at all students who earn some sort of aid or scholarship. That's a pretty impressive number, and again, we'd like to continue to support more of our students to leave college with no debt, if not just a small amount. We are financially stable. You'll hear about that today. We've increased in almost all of our success metrics. So we set out very specific goals every year, and really for the past 6 years, on how we want to continue to improve our student success measures, everything from the percentage of students who move through developmental education all the way to our number of graduates, and we're seeing increases in all measures. So that means we're doing the right things. We had a record-breaking year this year in annual giving through our foundation. And you know, we've been very focused on utilizing our auxiliaries, such as the Faculty Student Association, the Housing Association, any additional revenue that they're collecting on things like the bookstore, food service, housing. We've been asking to invest that money right back into the college. Our foundation's been around since the 80s, and they've been very supportive of the college, and now we're kind of taking it to the next level, looking not only at how to fund scholarships, but also how to fund, of course, capital projects like they did with the Adirondack Hall and Northwest Bay, but also in terms of operational opportunities, investing in new strategies for us to be able to continue to meet the needs of our community. And you know, 76,000 compared to 40,000 last year is a pretty significant jump. And I can tell you the key to that is that we asked people to give and invest in the college, and they responded, so we're pretty excited. We had record-breaking attendance this year at Open House, kind of coincided with what I shared with you in terms of tours. And of course, our Culinary Center opened with great success. You know, some of you were able to join me for lunch in the center, and I hope all of you get a chance, if you haven't, to be able to share in that opportunity. But already we exceeded last year's gross sales by about 118%. So it was wildly popular, and now we're looking at how we can continue to grow the opportunities and events at the Culinary Center. And of course, it will be open in the fall under the student-run restaurant because it's part of their curriculum. And we feel like there's a lot of positive energy about the college and the community. That bodes well for all of us in terms of people looking at the college as really a resource and an opportunity to grow and to be lives of many people. One thing that we'll be working on coming up next year, I just want to make sure you're aware of, it used to be every 10 years, now it's every 8 years. The college goes through a pretty extensive process to be reaccredited by the organization called the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. There are these commissions throughout the country. In order to be accredited, you have to go through a pretty extensive self-study process to be able to demonstrate that the college is meeting standards of excellence that we expect in every higher education institution, whether it be community colleges, four-year colleges, for-profit, nonprofit, we're all subject to the same standards if we want to actually collect any financial aid for students. So it's pretty important for us to be accredited, of course, for that opportunity for our students, but more importantly, to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our communities. So we spent the last year with several work groups across campus that have been really looking internally to say, how are we doing compared to these standards? And we look at it not only as an opportunity, of course, to be accredited, but also for continuous improvement. We want to make sure that we're doing the things that we say we're doing. How can we demonstrate that, which is really what Middle States is looking at. What evidence do you have to say that you're producing high-quality graduates, you have a high-quality education, et cetera. So teams of employees all across different employee groups have been working on our self-study. We have the first draft ready to go. This summer we'll be editing that and continuing to refine it as we gather more data. As you can imagine, it's a lot of work. And so even though it's not the most exciting work that we get to do, it's really important to the institution. We have an evaluation team of peers that come and evaluate us. That will happen in next spring in April 2020. We have a team chair who's another community college president out of Maryland, and so she'll actually assemble the evaluation team of peers. And they will, of course, read our self-study, and then they'll come for a visit and meet with various constituents to really talk about the self-study and what we're doing. And so we'll be working on that throughout the fall and into the spring. I do want to share just a couple of quick stories that I think really are indicative of the kind of work that's happening here. So this is Ethan Smith from Greenwich, and what he says, I wanted to go to SUNY Cobleskill in agriculture, but I couldn't afford to move away. I'm 26 years old and I work construction full-time. I was glad to hear about SUNY Adirondacks' new agricultural business degree. I think it is a good direction for the college because so much is happening in agriculture right now. I really enjoyed the teachers that I have met, and I appreciate that so many of the classes are hands-on. It's nice to see firsthand what people in agriculture are doing and learn different techniques. The technology being used in the greenhouses really blew my mind. I appreciate everything I've learned here, and I feel a lot smarter now. I plan to transfer to SUNY Cobleskill, and I want to start my own farm. And this is Faith Spangler. She says her family vacationed in the Adirondacks when I was a kid, and I was very attracted to the environment. Living 2.5 hours away from home cultivates my independence, which was very important to me. I've also known that music was where my heart was, even in elementary school. I think that the music program here is very underrated. It is amazing. Professors are so personal with you, and music is a personal thing. You feel that they really care about your life as a musician. The people I've met and the experiences I've had here at SUNY Adirondacks have definitely shaped who I've become and are a crucial part of my journey to find myself and find the right path for me. I've been able to experience not only academic growth, but personal growth. And I'm very thankful to have chosen the college. Also, knowing I'm leaving debt-free gives me more freedom to make decisions after I graduate. And that's what I have to share with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay, we'll move on to the main event then.
Good afternoon, thank you. I don't really know how to follow that. My presentation's pretty boring. Budgets are supposed to be boring. Does everyone have a budget book? Okay, I'm going to tell you what pages to follow along on, but we're also going to put it up on the presentation slide, so whatever works for you. When you have a moment, please take time to read about about the Warren County residents and Washington County residents that we've selected to highlight in their related stories this year. That's on the second page of your book. Immediately following that, you'll find a letter from President Duffy to you describing what we are going to cover here today. For all the new supervisors and a reminder for everyone else, I do like to give just a really brief overview of New York State Community College financing. I will try to keep it short. Some of you have seen this slide maybe dozens of times at this point. But state education law does regulate both our operating and our capital revenue streams as well as our expenditures, and those are two separate budgets. We're here today to talk about our operating budget only. The sources of operating revenues for us are state revenues, which mostly comes in the form of state aid, which we're going to talk about today, and rental aid, which is a dollar amount per square foot. The total dollar amount of rental aid hasn't changed in a very long time, but the square feet that community colleges rent across the state does change, so that dollar amount per square foot varies a little bit each year. Sponsors contribution, we have Warren and Washington County sponsors cash, what is sometimes referred to as maintenance of effort. In addition, any fund balance that is applied is considered sponsors contribution. We have non-sponsors contribution, which mostly comes in the form of chargebacks. The majority of chargebacks come from Saratoga County, followed closely by the 5 boroughs of New York City. And any residents that attend pay full tuition as well. Those two things together, sponsors contribution and non-sponsors contribution, are called local share in New York State education law. We then have student revenue, which mostly comes in the form of tuition and in the form of fees. We have some other income from things like renting out some of our facilities, things like that that aren't necessarily completely mission or education driven. And then we have grants, and we've really lucked out with grants in the past few years. There are things like Perkins, Upward Bound, Workforce Development grants, and most recently a large number of SUNY grants, which they had called performance investment funds, but they'll be called something else in the future. I do also like to remind people that we've kind of transitioned from being state supported to what I would call state assisted. We are highly dependent upon tuition, and so we are impacted by any sort of enrollment fluctuations, which we have been talking about and President Duffy just talked to you about as well. We also are in a position where we really can't continue to rely on fund balance, and we haven't in a very long time, to balance our budget on an annual basis, and that's something that we're proud of, and there's a slide on fund balance we're going to talk about in a little while as well. Any questions about how our operating budget is financed? So we're going to begin with the executive summary, which is on page 1 of your book. This year, we're proposing a total operating budget increase of $613,516, or 1.9%. And we believe at the end of this presentation that you will find this to be a conservative increase and one that is financially prudent. The college does continue to return to pre-recession levels of enrollment, as Dr. Duffy explained, and as a result, you'll see the budgeted FTE decline of 6.9%, or 184 FTE. This number is slightly different than what President Duffy presented because we count them a little different in the budget. The graph below details full-time headcount, part-time credit hours, and high school credit hour enrollments. We are projecting declines in full-time enrollments and part-time credit hours and a slight increase in high school credit hours, and that follows the trend that we have seen in the last few years. In response to that projected decline in enrollment, the college has identified ways to reduce costs while also finding ways to generate new revenues. If you turn to page 2, we'll go over the changes in revenue from budget to budget. Most importantly, we're going to talk about the change in state aid under state revenues. As many of you know, for the past several years, the New York State community colleges have advocated for a more modern and stable funding model that reflects today's educational environment and the fixed cost of doing business. Historically, our funding has been solely based on a volume model, so a dollar amount per FTE with really no acknowledgement that any business has fixed costs. The lights are on in this room regardless of how many students are sitting in it. The funding approved for 2019-20 did respond to these needs in the short term by establishing a funding floor for community colleges that provided the same amount of funding as the previous year for the most part, or a value of a per FTE funding increase of $100, whichever was higher. While that's certainly a positive sign to have the state recognize the value of predictable and stable funding, the enacted model only results in an additional $116,000 for SUNY Adirondack and is not yet a permanent change. In addition, other forms of state aid are in jeopardy of being eliminated or reduced in the future. While this change stabilized funding for this year, it still does not keep pace with even benefits experienced by employers throughout the state, including SUNY Adirondack. The SUNY Chancellor and the Community College Presidents have committed to continue advocating for a more permanent funding model change and the establishment of an adequate level of funding. For state aid rental, in the past, the total pool of state aid remained flat, as I stated, but the square feet changes. This year, that's going to result in a $3,000 decrease for SUNY Adirondack. Other decreases in state aid for job linkage and the investment and performance fund result in a decrease of $75,000. That's the total for state revenue. Previously approved tuition rate increases, which are detailed on page 5 of your budget book, together with the projected decline in enrollment, result in a budgeted decrease in revenue and tuition of $362,000. It's important to note that although we did have an increase in tuition this year, we do maintain one of the lowest rates in the SUNY system. I think we're the 7th or 8th lowest out of all 3 community colleges. You will see a budgeted increase in student technology fee revenue of $384,000, and while that seems like a lot in 1 year, it directly supports investments in educational technology that are specifically for students and which our students have asked for and are very appreciative of. We do ask for feedback from them on that, and they like what we've put in place so far. And increased revenue from other fees will result in about an additional $74,000. And just so that you know, those fees cannot be revenue generating from New York State education law. They need to directly support expenditures that go towards students and specifically for that fee. So it's not like we can just raise a fee. We can't really do that. There has to be a specific expense that goes along with it. Non-sponsor share. We're projecting an increase in chargeback revenue received from New York State residents outside of Warren and Washington County that attend SUNY Adirondack of about $200,000 for next year. We move down to sponsors' contribution. We are asking for a modest 2% increase from you, which totals $69,969. That request will bring the, I want to get this right, Warren County contribution to $2,047,737. The Washington County contribution to $1,520,262. That will maintain a total sponsor contribution of 11.1% of our total operating budget, which is almost exactly what it was last year as well. And while we do recognize and appreciate the financial challenges that our sponsors face, that contribution of total operating revenues is several percentage points below the average of our peers, and that results in the additional tuition that we generate from our students. Increases in other revenue are expected to go up about $210,000. The graph below details SUNY Adirondack's operating revenue by source compared to our peers, and as I just mentioned, as you can see, we receive about 4% less from our sponsors, and that directly impacts the amount that we receive from students compared to our peers. We have done a pretty good job of offsetting some of that through other revenue and mostly through chargebacks, which has been fabulous. If you would like to turn to page 6 for a moment, there is a historical trend of our operating revenues by source. And although it's important to note that several years of underfunding at the state level and not being able case that the county either have resulted in students bearing the majority of the financial burden. We are very mindful of that, and we try to be good stewards of our funds. We've increased our grant revenues, and that's resulted in a decline of 3.5% in student revenues as a percentage of total from 2012 to 2013 to today. And that is one of our strategic plan goals. Our goal is to keep that number under 50%, but also to keep it going down. If you'd like to move on to page 3. We'll review a summary of the changes in expenses from budget to budget. In response to the projected decline in enrollment, the college has agreed to identify ways to reduce costs, which we've done for the last several years, but this year we are doing it extensively. Together, we've agreed to defer or reallocate several positions, reduce spending on controllable expenses, and reorganize departments to manage expenditures. Like any organization of our size, we do have necessary fixed costs associated with providing the needed services and facilities our students and faculty require, as well as attracting and retaining a workforce of talented, qualified professionals. Those fixed costs alone rise on average about 3 to 4% per year, much like many other employers in the region. If we begin with personnel, we are proposing a $3,000 decrease as a result of retirements and mostly reduction in adjunct budgets and position deferrals. If we move on to benefits, this is the largest and almost sole increase in our budget year over year. Benefits are budgeted to increase $591,000, and although that is a large increase in 1 year alone, benefit expenses have been reasonable over a 5-year period, as you can see in the graph below. So the college continues to take steps to manage our overall expenditures on health insurance, especially high-cost claims and specialty drugs. But this year we did have a very high utilization rate that's going to result in an increase for next year. Utilities are projected to go up $15,000, and all other expenses across the college only $11,000. Any question on expenses? Yes.
What is the staff's percentage that they pay towards their health insurance?
Varies based on what plan they're in. I'm going to round it out at 25%. It's different for different groups, but for the most part, it's about 75, 25.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, is higher than many of our peers who made that
It is.
decision quite a few years ago.
There's a good number of our peers that fund benefits at 100%. If you remain on page 3, the graph below details SUNY Adirondacks operating expenditures by category as compared to our peers. We like to look at this just as a point of reference, just to make sure, that nothing's really out of whack. Not saying we want to be exactly what our peers are, but it's just a benchmark and a point of reference. You can see that although we do spend a larger percentage of our budget on personnel, that spending is offset by a lower benefits cost. Overall spending on personnel benefits together combined will be less than 80%, which is our Board of Trustees benchmark and the SUNY-wide benchmark for community colleges. They really don't like to see that number above 80%, and we'll be below that this year. Turning to page 4, we'll quickly review a summary of changes in fund balance and grants. There's not a whole lot to report here. We are not budgeting any appropriation to or from the fund balance. Our fund balance maintains about 1 month's operating expenditures, which is comparable to our peers. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends 2. We'd like to have 2. Right now we have 1, and we're comfortable with that for right now. It's about what our peers have also. It's about $2.8 million. Right below that on page 4 is a summary of grants. Grant revenue is decreasing this year by $294,000 as we expected as a result of the community schools grant, some SUNY performance grants, and the Adirondack Completes grant expiring. And we were planning on that. We knew when we received those grants when they would expire, and we planned for that accordingly. Just to kind of summarize the budget for you, there aren't many changes this year. Benefits was really the largest change. Only 0.2% of the proposed budget this year will fund strategic goals identified in Adirondack Agenda 2.0. We would like that to be higher. Our goal is 1 to 2%. But as enrollment declines, that's going to be a challenge this year. But Rob tells me it's something better, so I don't know. We'll see where it comes in. Personnel and benefit expenses total 78.2%, so we've got good cushion below the 80%, and we will continue to manage that percentage as well. Students funding 44.6% of all revenues, and as we discussed, although that's higher than we'd like, it's still below the 50% benchmark that we have for ourselves, and has gone down consistently from 2012 to 2013. And we are asking our sponsors for a 2% increase in the sponsors' contribution. Finally, the resolutions, the draft resolutions you have before you, basically ask our sponsors to approve the proposed 2019-20 operating budget of $32,097,599 and the restricted grant budget of $1,716,624 for a total budget of $33,814,223. I'm sure everyone's interested in the exact dollars. We update this slide for you each year because inevitably someone asks the question if we don't put it in here, but just some quick notes and information about your sponsors' contribution. The numbers for Warren and Washington County are listed in here, as we discussed previously. They're based on fall 2017 actual enrollments. That's the agreement that Warren and Washington County had when they originally became sponsors of SUNY Adirondack. They had agreed to split the total sponsor share based on those enrollments from the previous year. It'll be a $40,152 increase for Warren County, a $29,809 increase for Washington County budget. It will make up 11.1% of our total operating revenue. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out each year that if we keep the sponsors increase at 2%, it will continue to decline as a total percentage of operating revenues and expenditures. We understand the financial challenges that you all face, so we understand why that is, but it will continue to make that decline, which will just continue to increase either grants or what comes from students, or hopefully the state. Any questions about the total sponsors contribution? Does anyone have any questions that I can answer? Yes.
That was chargebacks, you know, the chargebacks going up $100,000 for some reason they're projecting.
So chargeback revenue has gone up pretty consistently since we had SUNY Adirondack Saratoga, previously SUNY Adirondack at Hilton, and the residence hall. We kind of come in a little over budget each year, and the way that that formula works, it just kind of, it rolls and it reconciles, and that's the hamster wheel calculation that I refer to sometimes, where you just have to throw a number out there, and that's what results in the chargeback formula. So we're pretty confident of where it's going to be this year. It's not necessarily that we're projecting a huge increase, a small increase in those actual enrollments, but really that we're more evening out. Like this year, we're over budget in chargeback revenue. So it's really just evening out the budget. I've always hated to be too aggressive with the budget for that, because I'd rather have additional money when the fall hits than have us trying to find it if we had overshot that number.
Your personnel number basically isn't changing, you know, it's about $3,000 or something. Your benefits number is up about 10%. What's driving that?
We had several high-cost claimants this year.
So it's
and
health
last
insurance?
year. It's all, I'm sorry, it's all health insurance.
Okay.
It's all health insurance.
Now, the technology, estimate technology fee revenue of 384, is that an estimate or is that a predictable number? Is that a good number? How solid a number is that?
It's a solid number. It's based on enrollment, so enrollment doesn't, it's based on enrollment in this budget. If enrollment doesn't come in according to this budget, it won't be that number. But we're on target to meet the enrollment that we've included in this budget.
Is That's directly related to enrollment.
Absolutely. Yep, it's a charge per credit hour to the student. Yeah.
What are your capital projects in the playground community and what money, if any, is in this budget or that you're trying to squirrel away for? And I'm asking this question because of Chairman Conover's initiative in our county with the capital projects and trying to establish a capital fund.
Sure. So this budget is our operating budget. Our capital budget is separate, so there is no money in this budget for any capital projects. We haven't started putting our capital requests together yet. I'm going to start that probably in the next 2 weeks. But the upcoming projects are the projects that most of us know about and have been talking about. The athletic facilities are in need of major repair. They're probably the most utilized on our campus by our students. And, you know, the science building is no longer the worst building on campus. Now it's the gymnasium and the athletic fields that really are the oldest and in the need of most repair. Plus just some other investments in infrastructure, technology, really, and updating and modernizing some classrooms. We've done probably the majority of the large work, and we're finishing that up and wrapping that up with the science renovation, Warren Hall, Scoville. So really our athletic needs and our theater. If you've attended an event in our theater, you're aware that it's in need of some updating, and our music rooms are really not soundproof, not well ventilated. So those are probably, I don't know if you have anything else, but those are the two large projects.
Yeah, I mean, when we put together and shared this with you last fall, our 10-year projection, we have, still a sizable amount of capital dollars needed, not only for renovating facilities, but just general maintenance and upgrades and renovations that would come with an aging facility. So I think the total dollar amount over a 10-year period was in the multi-million dollars, and we know that. So the focus that we have is on where are those sources of revenue that we can identify. And as I said earlier, we've been very successful in working with our foundation. And the foundation right now is going through their redesign in terms of how the foundation is structured. They're very aware of what our capital needs are in the future, and that we will be coming to them to ask for support in terms of campaign funds. Remember that any dollars we raise from our donors or from grants can be matched 50% with the state, so that's obviously money that we really seek. That entity, as well as our Faculty Student Association, again, our Adirondack Housing Association, which is runs our housing, they also generate revenue, and we've been able to secure a consistent dollar amount each year going forward to help improve our facilities, particularly related to the most student-used facilities like the gymnasium. So we're not prepared yet to come to the counties to ask for anything, but we do have needs, as you can imagine, like any other entity. Just so you're aware, we are working on potentially being able to apply for some funds to help support some of the athletic fields. I'm also going to be looking to pursue the CFA process, the Regional Economic Development Council, to help fund some of the facilities, because I think we do have an economic development opportunity. If we are able to upgrade our athletic facilities, we can attract tournaments and tourism and all the things that help the county. And so, we are being as creative as we can to look at all the different pots of money that might be available. Although it's not entirely capital related, the governor did approve a $175 million allocation to support workforce development, and it's a very broad term. It can support anything from program development to equipment for high needs types of and high demand industries, and so that's a new opportunity for us and all the institutions, so we'll be looking at that. And as Anne Marie said, we have been very successful with grants. The challenge, of course, as you know, with grants is they run out. So we have to be really mindful of, securing a grant is great, it can help start something up, but we have to make sure we can actually maintain it. Particularly, our business is a people business, and so when you invest in personnel, of course, there's a long-term strategy that you have to implement to make sure you don't find yourself in a position of overstaffing or committing to something that you can't sustain. that's a long answer to your question, but, yes, we are. And typically, we'll be having our meeting with you in the fall to present our capital request. And remember that generally is just our request that goes to the state, but it has to come through the counties first. And at this point, we're not anticipating asking the county for anything in this year's capital request. But I know that, we've been talking about making sure we're sharing the right information with you all as you make your long-term plan, particularly in Warren
I
County.
think that's very important that at this particular moment in time, you give us the best picture of capital needs going forward.
Okay.
And how we put the financing together, will that become later? But I think the board's very interested.
Going back road, my favorite, the stairs between Washington Hall and Eisenhower, so you don't have to go through the building or around campus. People like to never happen, because for some reason they're $1 million. So those were the major things that we had put in there. Also important to note, the college has about 12 years worth of deferred maintenance on hand at any time, and that's capital also. So it doesn't always fund something new and fabulous. It also just kind of helps maintain and keep in safe, adequate working condition the facilities that we already have. And this, just to make sure everyone's aware, the sponsor contribution gets matched as well. So it's not just the donations that we get from other people, but any dollars we get from the sponsor get doubled also when we do a capital project. That's all considered local share, and that will get matched by the state. What they won't match is other state money. So if we get some CFA money or some economic development money, they will not match state money with state money. But they consider local share to be any contributions that we get from our sponsors, any donations, fundraising that we do, things that we get from the FSA or the Ironic Housing Association or our foundation. They count all of that as local share, and that's what gets doubled. Yes.
I wonder if you could just remind everybody one more time about how the fund balance appropriation or increasing your fund balance affects the chargeback rate.
So technically, if we put money back into the fund balance, it reduces the chargeback rate. So that rate that we're allowed to charge Saratoga County and any other county that sends a student here. So it's kind of a painful inverse relationship. To be financially prudent and responsible, we need to have an adequate fund balance. But every dollar that you put in there just reduces the revenue that you get from somewhere else. And so it's a little bit painful and challenging of a relationship. We're pretty strategic and careful about money that we put back into the fund balance. The last few years, we've received some other income that was really not related to, I would say, direct student revenue. It was money that we received for some other services that we provided, as SUNY system administration and things like that. And we put those into a reserve for health insurance to kind of protect us in ways, we've moved to be self-insured. We've self-insured the prescription for a long time. So we're establishing that reserve in case we get to a bad year somewhere. So we have increased it a little bit in the last few years, very strategically. But in years where we knew we could absorb that impact. That may change, by the way. That's one of the things that's kind of up in the air with the budgets going forward, is that kind of inverse relationship. I think there's a wide recognition and understanding that it doesn't really make sense.
I think more of a comment than a question, but I think that's why we have to be careful when the times when we can only do 0%, 1%, that actually hurts because that doesn't get matched by the state.
Yep.
We lose out there. And second of all, I think Dr. Duffy really went the right way on all this, is the fact that as we build a bigger and better campus to do all the things we want to do, we also need to maintain it at a level so that we're not having to revamp it every so many years. If we can keep it at a level that it doesn't look even worn and update the little things that we need to go along, it really helps out and saves those big ticket numbers. And I'm glad you're looking at that strategically because it all ties in, like you said, if you don't use fund balance or you take fund balance or you add to fund balance, that hurts you in one way or another. It's so related that you need somebody on top of that the whole time, which you very much are. And I I think the way you presented it today is really good. I really liked your comment on how it's tied together, because those are the things that, it's different than anything else we do in county government. There's nothing that compares to the way they handle this. And it's good to have some insight on how that works and to handle that as we go along, because we've all learned one way how we do it, and this is totally different. So I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Yes.
You've given a lot of information here, a lot of things. But I wanted to ask this question, and I don't know if you have an answer to it. Over the years, you've always been very receptive to the industry side of our community for Warren, Washington County. And you've always adjusted your program to kind of help our economy, and I appreciate that. Do you have any statistics like, is there an increase in enrollment from Warren, Washington County over the last 10 years due to the fact that you're addressing some of the concerns that our counterpart industry has been voicing to you? I mean, that really would tell me that we're headed in the right direction. Is that the case? And maybe what percentage of the student enrollment is from Warren, Washington County? And what percent graduate? No, that's the success of the two counties that have the investment.
Okay, I don't have that handy.
Well,
Get it,
it's unfair to ask that, I
but-
don't know, you've given us so much.
I'm thinking that Rob may know.
Yeah, I mean, as far as percentage of enrollment, Warren and Washington County together make up just about 50% of our enrollment. Then about 34% of that comes, or in addition to that, comes from Saratoga County, and the rest come from everywhere else, yeah. So, and, you know, Warren County has a little bit higher percentage, but not that much. What we've seen in enrollment over the past, you know, several years is that, remember too, the number of high school graduates has declined at the same time that, you know, we're moving forward. So, but as a percentage, we've pretty much maintained about the same percentage of Washington and Warren County high school graduates I'm looking at. But the programs that we've added that are workforce development related, we continue to see increases in applications and enrollments, like John was.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in on that, Dan and others. Our new mechatronics program is directly in response to our manufacturing community here. They were looking for skilled workers at the 2-year college level, more than a high school diploma, but less than a bachelor's degree to run those automated manufacturing environments that they have. And we started that program the year that's just ended. So those first-year students from last year will be completing that program this year. That's really taken off in enrollment, and again, we've done that in partnership with our manufacturing businesses. The other one, I think somebody mentioned it earlier, maybe it was Dr. Duffy, our agriculture business program, and particularly we know in Washington County, but also in Warren and Saratoga counties, there are a lot of people who make their living through agriculture. The student story that's up at the beginning is a good example of that. That program is very new, and much to our pleasant surprise, my pleasant surprise, enrollment in that has exceeded our initial expectations, so we're good there. And the other thing that sometimes we don't think about, but it's worthy of mentioning, is we have been increasing in fairly large percentage the non-credit continuing education courses that we offer. Dr. Duffy did mention that earlier in the remarks today in reference to the coding academy. Those students aren't necessarily coming to us, at least not yet, to get a college degree in computer coding, but they're there to get employable skills in coding, raise their own personal income, but also make contributions to what's becoming, a more digital economy than we have had maybe, even 10 or 20 years ago. So those, Dan, are just 3 examples that come top of mind to respond to the question that you had about what are we doing to keep current.
I have one more, Dan. If you look on page 5 of your budget book, I forgot we started including this little tidbit of information a few years ago. But under the proposed sponsors contribution, which is about 3/4 of the way down, just the total of Warren and Washington, not all students, but just Warren and Washington. Warren County now makes up 57% of that total. Washington County is 43%. I very distinctly remember when I was here in 2010, those percentages were 60-40. I'll probably remember that as well. So Washington County has grown its percentage of the local share by a couple percentage points. Warren County has lost a couple percentage points. But that's not total enrollment. That's just looking at your split between Warren and Washington. So that's just another data point.
Teresa, your comment you made about the establishing either you have or you're considering establishing a reserve fund for healthcare costs. Have you done that, or you're contemplating?
Yes, no, we've done that. When the college began self-funding its prescription piece, which was, I'm going to guess, somewhere between 2005 and 2007. The Board of Trustees set aside a temporary reserve piece of our fund balance. So we took a section of the fund balance, it's not permanently reserved, our auditors call it board designated. So they set that aside specifically just in case those self-funding needs ended up being higher than what was being projected at the time. We never had to touch that. The last several years, as we've been talking about self-funding the medical piece of our premium, which we now have done, like Warren County has as well, we strategically started to build up that board designated fund a little bit each year with revenues that we received from other services that we had provided. So we didn't take it from tuition revenue or from our sponsor contribution or anything else. It was revenues that came in that we weren't expecting due to some grants and some services that we provided to SUNY, and we set those aside.
It just seems, other than the cash flow, that's a good interesting target for fund balance.
Yep. When we discussed with our health insurance broker, who's the same broker that we use, they provided us kind of a stepped-in phase to try to build that reserve to something that would be considered, a safe and adequate level. We're there. We didn't move in that direction until we had what we thought was reasonable. But healthcare costs continue to increase. You can see that this year in our budget as well. The cost of specialty drugs have continued to increase significantly. Our retirees are part of our health insurance program here, so we carry that in our program as well, that population. And so we're just trying to prepare for that.
I'm sure in the past, probably like Washington County still does, you've had stopgap insurance and on your losses, and is it not, maybe time to look back and see what the cost of that is compared to the reserve being spent? I mean, because that is a 10% increase in benefits in 1 year is pretty big. You may not have it every year, but if you could get away with an insurance that costs you $100,000 prevents that loss, and nothing's guaranteeing that, but maybe we need to look at that again.
We have stop loss insurance, and
Still have that kind of increase.
yes. But if you look at it over 5 years, it's I think only, what did you say it was? Like 5%. So, this is one of the risks you have of being insured on the medical side is if you have a year with high cost claims, the insurance company is going to increase your premiums the following year. And that's exactly what happened this year. We had several high cost claimants that directly impacted the premium. And I think if you look at it over 5 years, and even that slide where you compare our spending compared to our peers, it's been pretty stable. We have not experienced the double-digit increases that most employers did during the years when they did. So it's a hit in 1 year, but when you look at it over time, it's not as drastic. But one of the reasons that we switched to being fully self-insured was so that our stop loss coverage was more adequate. So when we were fully insured on the premium and self-insured on the prescription, the stop loss coverage is almost meaningless. It's very small, and it does not cover a whole claim. So one of the benefits of going fully self-insured is that we have much more adequate stop loss insurance now. copied your resolution from last year and put the updated numbers in it. These are. Okay, who would like one for, here, I'll let you hand out Warren. Who would like one for Washington? Washington, anyone?
As a reminder, this is the language that's required by us according to the state ed law. It's, yeah, it's.
It's not right, so meaning it's bad to you.
I'll make resolution for Washington County on that. I don't know, community college. Second. Aye.
I'll make a motion, we approve this resolution. The motion by Matt Simpson, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Conor Bremer.
Okay, so on finance, we will need a motion and a second as well. Motion made by Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by
Second.
Supervisor Bramer. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
What is the pleasure of Washington County?
I'll make a motion on finance to approve the budget.
Second. To approve this now. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
So thank you for coming. We really appreciate your support and we look forward to full approval at your board meetings later this month. But if there's any other questions in between that we can help to you, let me know. And thank you again for coming.
No, not yet.